Welcome to The Explainer. So, today we're jumping into a debate that's been around for, well, centuries. When we talk about the figure of Jesus, what are we actually talking about? Is it a wise moral teacher, someone whose ideas we can totally grasp with just logic and reason? Or is it something else entirely? A figure of faith, the divine Son of God? You've got this clash, right? Reason versus faith. And it really gets to the heart of what Christianity is all about.
So think about it. For literally centuries, people have been asking, who exactly was this person Jesus of Nazareth? Was he just a profound ethical guide? A man who laid out this amazing universal moral code that pretty much anyone can understand? Or was he something more, something that demands faith?
And what you end up with isn't just one question. It's two totally different pictures of who Jesus was. On one side, you have the Jesus of reason, the ultimate moral example, but with all the supernatural stuff kind of stripped away. And on the other side, you have the Jesus of faith, a figure rooted in divinity, someone you have a personal relationship with. This whole intellectual battle was a huge deal for the theologian Joseph Ratzinger, who you probably know better as Pope Benedict XVI.
Okay, so to really get what Ratzinger was getting at, we gotta rewind a bit. He wasn't just coming up with these ideas in a vacuum. Nope, he was responding to a really powerful intellectual movement that tried to reshape Jesus for the modern world. And that movement was the Enlightenment.
Right, so the Germans had a word for it, the Aufklärung. And the whole project was basically an attempt to declutter Christianity. The goal was to create a version of the faith that a modern, scientific person could get behind without having to wrestle with things like miracles or divinity. Pure reason was the ultimate measuring stick, and anything that seemed like dogma or mystery, it got set aside.
So you had thinkers from this period, big names like Hegel, who started to see Jesus in a completely new light. In Hegel's mind, Jesus wasn't some divine being bringing salvation from above. He was the ultimate moral guide, whose death was meant to awaken this inner moral law that's already inside every single one of us.
The idea here was, look, Jesus wasn't bringing down some brand new message from on high. Instead, he was just uncovering this universal code of goodness that anyone, anywhere could figure out just by using their own reason. His death wasn't a divine sacrifice, it was just the tragic but totally logical outcome of being so dedicated to that virtue.
And what came out of all this? Well, you get this version of Jesus who's, he's respectable, he's logical, he's a great moral guy. He fits perfectly into a modern, rational way of looking at the world. But, and this is a big but for Ratzinger, this reasonable Jesus was also dangerously incomplete. So what's the big deal? What's the problem with having a rational, ethical Jesus? Well, for Ratzinger, here's the crazy irony. He argued that in this whole quest to find the real historical Jesus, by peeling away all the layers of faith, these thinkers didn't actually find him. They lost him completely.
And Ratzinger had this brilliant metaphor to explain it. He said that all these different portraits of a reasonable Jesus weren't really like photographs of Jesus at all. They were more like self-portraits of the philosophers who came up with them, reflecting their own modern ideas and their own biases.
So instead of getting a clearer picture, things just got muddier. This attempt to stuff Jesus into one single modern box just led to a ton of different and often contradictory versions of him. Was he this gentle teacher, or maybe a revolutionary fighting the Romans? In Ratzinger's view, these were all just us projecting our own ideas onto him. And this is really the heart of Ratzinger's critique. In their attempt to make Jesus seem reasonable, these reconstructions ended up cutting out the very thing that, in the Christian tradition, makes him who he is, his divine sonship, that unique, defining relationship with God the Father. Okay, so if that's the problem, what's the solution? If the Enlightenment's approach was off the mark, what was Ratzinger's alternative? He argued that to really get who Jesus is, we have to go back and reclaim two massive ideas that the purely rational approach just tossed aside. The first one is logos. See, for the Enlightenment, reason was something we do, right? It's a tool in our toolbox. But Ratzinger, pointing back to the Gospel of John, says, no, it's much bigger than that. Jesus is the divine logos. He's God's own reason, God's creative word made human. He isn't just a guy with a good plan. He is divine reason itself.
All right, the second idea. This one is even more important to Ratzinger. In fact, he saw it as the absolute key to the whole thing. And that concept is sonship. You see, for Ratzinger, when Jesus is called son, it's not just some title. It's not a metaphor. It defines his entire existence. His very being
is a relationship with the Father. It's the absolute key to understanding who he is and what his mission was all about. He was convinced this relationship is the absolute center of gravity for the whole story. As he put it, if you take sonship out of the equation, the figure of Jesus becomes self-contradictory and ultimately unintelligible. The whole thing it falls apart. It doesn't make sense anymore. It's this deep, personal connection to the Father that ties everything together. His teachings, his actions, what he claimed about himself, even his death. Without that connection, you're just left with a collection of nice moral sayings that, frankly, could have come from anyone. So, okay, this all feels pretty high level, right? A big theological debate. But why should we care about it today? What's the real takeaway from this whole clash of ideas? Well, for one, Ratzinger's whole argument really pushes back on the idea that pure reason is the only way to find truth. And this isn't just some old historical debate. You see echoes of it today, right? When people praise Jesus as a great moral teacher, but then kind of brush aside the whole divinity thing. For Ratzinger, trying to shrink faith down to only what seems reasonable misses the entire point. True understanding, he would say, needs both reason and relationship. And that really brings us to his final, most powerful point. In Ratzinger's view, Christianity isn't a philosophy you just decide to adopt. It's not a moral system you just agree with. At its very core, it is an encounter with a person, an event that gives life, as he said, a new horizon and a decisive direction. And that leaves us with a big question to chew on. What is the real nature of faith? Is it about following a set of admirable ideas that our reason can get behind? Or is it about a personal relationship that by its very nature has to go beyond what history and reason, all on their own, can ever fully explain?